Big update time in the thrilling Christian McCaffrey availability saga. First things first, he was out on the practice field and looked spry as he had looked throughout all of training camp on Friday. Second things second, Christian McCaffrey was not an official participant in Friday's very light practice. Third things third, Christian McCaffrey in the locker room said that he feels great.
Nothing serious, I can tell you that. I feel, like I said, I feel great about where I'm at. Just unfortunately, when you have an injury history that I have, sometimes when you don't practice, things get blown out of proportion. But like I said, I feel great.
And fourth things fourth, Kyle Shanahan seemed to be in full obfuscation mode at his press conference following the Friday workout.
It's questionable. Questionable concern. I'm not going to say anything about Christian, guys, or any of our players' injuries.
I can tell you this much. If the 49ers are trying to confuse Seattle and confuse fantasy owners and 49ers fans across the world, they're doing a very textbook job at it, because when you see a player wearing a helmet on the practice field, taking part in the pre-practice greeting line, Christian McCaffrey had a nice big handshake with Fred Warner. That's a player who's typically ready to play on Sunday. And then everything that Christian McCaffrey said in the locker room indicated that he's preparing to play on Sunday. He called it a minor issue on Thursday, and that's the vibe that I got coming out of the 49ers building shortly after he was put on the injury report Thursday. So yes, as Christian said in his press conference, and we'll play the full thing here in a couple minutes, the injury history here, especially what happened last season entering week 1, does create an added sense of alarm whenever something is reported. But McCaffrey said that it was blown out of proportion, which is why we should always wait for all the facts to come out. And right now, the 49ers have Christian McCaffrey listed as questionable. Again, that's textbook. If they're trying to obfuscate here, and obfuscation is in the 49ers' best interest because you don't want Seattle to know if it's going to be Christian McCaffrey or Brian Robinson Jr. as the primary running back, well, one of the things that you would have to check off the list in the obfuscation effort would be to list Christian McCaffrey as questionable. Remember that there is no probable designation anymore. That went off the books several years ago. So a player either has no injury designation, a player is either questionable, or he's doubtful, or he is out. And Christian McCaffrey is listed as questionable. Well, the fact that he was limited in practice on Thursday, and then, this session, you could do a lot of fudging with Friday's session just because the team just basically goes through at walkthrough speed. You could easily keep him out without missing anything in Friday's session. If he is out of that session, if he only does the warm-up stuff as we saw today on the practice field, the 49ers have to put Christian McCaffrey on the game injury report as questionable at best because there is no probable designation. So really hard to read any further into that. Other piece of injury information is interesting and somewhat related. Yetur Gross-Matos again did not practice today, but Kyle Shanahan after practice said that he's good to go for Sunday. So based on that, we'd expect Yetur to play, which is good news for the 49ers. I think they can use that compliment to Mykel Williams, an outside-in defensive end. But as you can see, Friday practice participation, it's hard to glean from it, especially in this Christian McCaffrey situation where what the 49ers are saying in the Kyle Shanahan realm is obviously just shrouded in the fog of war. He doesn't want to give anything away. But what Christian McCaffrey is saying matches up with what Christian McCaffrey looks like on the practice field. And sometimes you just have to trust your eyes, right? Trust your eyes, use some intelligence in this situation. McCaffrey going through everything that he normally does during the warm-up period, hopping up and down even on that practice field. Doesn't seem like somebody who came off of a severe calf injury on Thursday. It sounded like it was some sort of minor tweak. He shut it down. He was proud of himself for not pushing through things too hard on Thursday. Christian said that in the past that was a mistake that he might have made, but now he's taking care of his body and making sure that he'll be good to go Personally, I would expect Christian to play on Sunday unless this is serious bubble wrap mode from the 49ers, and they do want to make sure that everything is 100% A-OK, given the fact that this is a marathon and not a sprint in the regular season. I just use my eyes. I use what I've collected through my reporting about the vibe surrounding this thing, and I understand that obfuscation is in the 49ers' best interest entering Seattle. Mike Macdonald doesn't know if it's going to be Christian McCaffrey or Brian Robinson Jr., whom the 49ers traded for to provide depth in that backfield. And it's not just depth with Brian Robinson Jr. It is a potential 1-2 punch. They can run 22 personnel or 12 personnel with two backs and not just Kyle Juszczyk and Christian McCaffrey. Brian Robinson Jr., he's picking up the playbook. You'll hear from him as well. We'll tack on his interview onto the end of this because this is a guy who started games for Washington, who has had a week plus to learn the 49ers system now, who's really good in short yardage, who had 700 plus rushing yards in each of his first 3 seasons, who has 65 catches at the NFL level. When you're talking about interchangeability with Christian McCaffrey, I know it's impossible to find that fully at 100% efficiency clip, but Brian Robinson Jr. is somebody who's probably more interchangeable with McCaffrey than Jordan Mason was, just because of that receiving ability. Anyway, this is all lining up for some drama on Sunday. I get it, but now that we have the full picture, I think that you can use your eyes and you could see which way this is trending. And obviously the 49ers completely avoided the worst that some people had just assumed yesterday when news came that Christian McCaffrey was limited in practice. We'll see how good Seattle's run defense is. We know that they think they're going to be very good defensively as a whole. The Seahawks, Jaron Reed talking about this being the top unit in football. They're number 6 against the run down the stretch last year after the bye. The last 6 games or last 8 games of the season. Mike Macdonald is going to dial up a lot of run blitzes. Now, he's very specific when he schemes to an opponent. And there are some run blitzes that are going to be better against McCaffrey in the backfield and some that are going to be better against Brian Robinson Jr. in the backfield, which is a big motivation for the 49ers, I think, a significant one to keep Seattle in the dark as far as who is going to be playing and who's not. And they tossed a lot of confusion out the Seahawks way. But again, look at Christian McCaffrey out on that practice field. He was moving very, very well throughout all of this preparation up to 2025, and I would expect him to continue moving very well on the field during the regular season here in 2025.
Physical condition.
What happened yesterday?
Nothing serious, I can tell you that. I feel, like I said, I feel great about where I'm at. Just unfortunately, when you have an injury history that I have, sometimes when you don't practice, things get blown out of proportion. But like I said, I feel great.
Does it feel different than it felt last summer?
Yeah, I've forgotten about last year. I forgot about the year before that. I'm focused on this week and playing Seattle on Sunday.
Christian, just kind of thing in practice where you felt something and you just want to be real cautious with it? Is that kind of
Yeah, I'm not supposed to go into anything that happened, but as I felt like it was a smart thing to do to not finish the practice because I've been there before and I've been my own worst enemy in situations like that, and I was proud of myself for not doing that again. And like I said, I went through a whole training camp, feel great about where I'm at. I think when you have somebody like him come in, he's a force multiplier. I think he makes our team better, makes everybody better. Anytime you get to add good players to an offense, it's just another guy that the defense has to account for. So it's been fun having him here and excited to see what he does.
Day by day, obviously the playbook is pretty big, and just doing everything I can to just dive right into it and learn all the information I need to know, going into a game week. So I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot as far as learning the playbook, for where we at to start the season.
What's been the most difficult part about the playbook?
Nothing that's been difficult about it is just learning and retaining the information. It's a lot of plays in there, so obviously I don't expect to have the playbook in full in 1 week, but constantly making that progress every day, just to get there.
Is there run game, pass game, protections, any one area where you feel like, okay, I got this part down, let's work on the others?
I'm working on just getting everything down. You know, I need to know the run game, passing game, and protection. I need to know that's all a part of being a running back. You know, that's my responsibility. So it's not one specific thing. I'm trying my best to learn everything as a whole, because in the end game, I got to know everything. So just doing my part, just to learn as fast as I can.
And when Christian got traded here 3 years ago, he said he came in with a chip on his shoulder that somebody was trading away. Do you have that same?
Of course, it's always going to be a chip that's on your shoulder, because I feel like somebody turn their back on you, and you want to do everything to show them why that wasn't the best decision. And I know that, and it's just up to me to just play with that chip on my shoulder and continue to show people why you should never count me out.
When you were coming out in the draft, was this one of the teams that you circled that might end up picking you?
Definitely. I kind of had a feeling about San Francisco coming out, because they invited me here for a top 30 visit, so I was able to come and meet with some of the coaches, GM, and just meet them and get a feel for this facility. Back before I came out to the draft, not knowing how the draft was going to play out, but I did feel like this could possibly be a landing spot for me.
Obviously,
like you said, I've been a starter in this league, so with that being said, I know what it takes to prepare like a starter all the time. So nothing changed. I come here and I prepare like I'm going to start every game, regardless of Christian and him being a starter here. This is how I got to prepare. I got to prepare like I'm ready to start at any given moment. That's how you become a starter in this league. Preparing like a starter when you're not the starter. That's how you become a starter in this league, and that's the way I prepare to play.
and does it feel even more real now that Christian's on the injury report?
Feel the same. Feel like I'm preparing the way that I prepare for a game. I prepare for a game as if I'm going to start the game. So, just the same routine.
Anything else, guys?